During his time at Nebraska, Ameer Abdullah became the first player in his school's history to rush for over 1,000 yards in 3 different seasons. He also had over 5,000 yards when he had finished his college career, and was just an overall very productive back. The 3-star running back was taken with the 54th overall pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, but for whatever reason just didn't have the same production in the NFL as he did in college. Today we're going to go through his career and find out why his productivity dipped as he made his transition from college to the pros. Guys, before we get into the video, I would really appreciate it if y'all liked and subscribed if y'all enjoy the content that I put out. It helps a lot and it only takes a second. Now let's get into the video. Ameer Abdullah attended Homewood High School in Alabama, and during his senior season he had 1,800 rushing yards and 515 receiving yards, along with 4 punt return touchdowns. Due to his performance, he was named the 2010 South Region Player of the Year and was invited to the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star Classic, where he caught the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Following his senior season, Ameer had offers from schools like Vanderbilt, West Virginia, Arkansas, and many more. But Ameer decided to commit to the University of Nebraska. And if you're like me, you might be wondering why a kid from Homewood, Alabama committed to a university as far away as Nebraska. For starters, some thought that he would commit to Auburn because that's where his brother went and it's in Alabama. But the problem is that Auburn wanted him to play DB and his heart was set on playing receiver. He also said that his meeting with Nebraska head coach Bo Pelini was one that really won him over. In the meeting, it was said by Ameer that the coach didn't add any sugar or empty promises that would have made going to Nebraska sound more convincing. Instead, he was straightforward with him and told him exactly what he should expect, and Ameer really respected him for that. So he decided to go to Nebraska. In his freshman year in Nebraska, Ameer only had 150 yards and 3 touchdowns on 42 attempts, since at that time the featured back was Rex Burkhead, who ran for over 1,000 yards that season and was on the Doak Walker Award watch list going into the season, so it was tough competition. The next season, however, Ameer had his first great season at Nebraska, as he had over 1,000 yards rushing with 8 touchdowns on 226 attempts. He also had 178 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns to go along with it. Going into his junior season, Ameer himself was named to the Doak Walker Award watch list, as well as the Walter Camp Player of the Year award. That year, Ameer ran for just under 1,700 yards and 9 touchdowns on 281 carries, along with 232 receiving yards on 26 receptions and 2 touchdowns. At the end of that season, Ameer ended up being named a Doak Walker Award semifinalist and was named a 3rd-team All-American and 1st-team All-Big Ten. He also released a statement saying that he would be returning for his senior season. For some players that are coming off a great junior year, the decision to come back for their senior season can go horribly wrong, but for Ameer, it was the right one. For one, he was predicted to go around the 3rd to 4th round in the 2014 NFL Draft, and he knew full well that he could raise his draft stock if he came back for his senior season. 2, he said that his education was more important than football, and he wanted to carry out the promise he had made to his parents of getting his degree. And 3, he also knew that going into that season, he would be on the watch list for major college football awards and could really prove how great he could be. He proved that coming back for that last season was the right decision. Going into that year, Ameer was named to the watch list of the Maxwell Award, the Doak Walker Running Back Award, and the Walter Camp Award, and his stats proved worthy of those accolades. That year, he had 1,611 rushing yards on 264 carries and 19 touchdowns, along with 269 receiving yards on 22 receptions and a touchdown to go along with it. After that season, Ameer was named a 2nd-team All-American and was a finalist for the Doak Walker Running Back Award. With the amazing year that Ameer had, he had accomplished what he set out to do before the season began, which was to boost his draft stock. He was predicted to go as a 2nd-round draft pick and had a great combine, finishing 1st in 4 different categories among running backs. Scouts are pointing out his strong points like his underrated power, acceleration and burst, elite vision, and cutting ability, while all of his weaknesses that were being pointed out really just all had to do with his size. They were questioning his durability as a small back, even though he had 993 carries in college. They were also concerned about the passing game and his ability to block big blitzing linebackers. Despite these questionable weaknesses, Ameer was taken with the 54th overall pick in the 2015 NFL Draft to the Detroit Lions. In his rookie season, Ameer was the featured back and started 9 of the 16 regular season games. In that season, he rushed for just under 600 yards on 143 carries and 2 touchdowns, along with 183 receiving yards on 25 receptions and a touchdown. Not only that, but he returned kicks and had over 1,000 kick return yards that season. This was a great start to Ameer's career, and he showed that he had the potential to one day be a star in this league. But unfortunately, this season would be the most productive thus far in his career. In his second season, he played in only the first 2 games before sustaining a left foot sprain against the Titans in week 2. That injury sidelined him for the rest of the season, and in the 2 games he played in, he had 101 rushing yards on 18 attempts and no touchdowns. But he would bounce back the next season and get back up to the level of productivity that he had his rookie year. In that season, Ameer carried the ball 165 times for 552 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. He also had 25 receptions for 162 receiving yards and a touchdown. However, this was not the production that the Lions were looking for, and it led to them signing LeGarrette Blount in free agency and drafting Kerryon Johnson in the second round of the 2018 NFL Draft. With both of those guys being signed, it led to the Lions releasing Ameer. But he would be picked up by the Vikings in the next season, yet failed to make any sort of impact at all. In 2017, which was Ameer's last season with the Lions, the Vikings drafted this guy who most of y'all may have heard of, Dalvin Cook. Now, it wasn't apparent at first, but Dalvin Cook would turn out to be one of the best running backs in the NFL. In Dalvin's second season in the league and Ameer's first season with the Vikings, Dalvin was the team's leading rusher with 615 rushing yards. But Ameer was a different story. That year, Ameer had 1 rush for 1 yard. That wasn't all he produced though, as he was the Vikings' main kick returner and had 365 yards on 14 returns. This was a disappointing season for Ameer to say the least, and even though his production would somewhat increase over the next 2 seasons, it was in no way as drastic as Dalvin's production. The next year in 2019, Ameer rushed for 115 yards on 23 attempts, but failed to reach the end zone once. Yet, his teammate Dalvin Cook carried the ball 250 times and rushed for over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, along with 13 touchdowns. Out of all the rushing attempts that anyone on the Vikings took that season, Ameer carried the ball a minuscule 0.05% of the time, while Dalvin had over half of all the rushes the team had that year. But it would only get worse from there, because the next year, the Vikings relied heavily on Dalvin, as he had 312 carries for 1,557 yards and 16 touchdowns, making it his best year in his short career. But Ameer had a year to forget, as he only carried the ball 8 times for 42 yards. To put in perspective the amount of carries Dalvin had and how little carries Ameer had, Ameer was responsible for 0.017% of the carries that year for the Vikings, while Dalvin carried the rock 67% of the time. I should mention that Ameer has been the Vikings' main kick returner since 2018 when he signed with the team, and has been mostly mediocre. In his 3 seasons returning kicks for the Vikings, he's only averaged around 24 yards to return, which isn't anything special. Okay, so now that we've looked at Ameer's career in whole, we must answer the question of why he wasn't more productive. In short, he just wasn't as good as the other backs he was competing against. When Ameer was drafted to the Lions in 2015, he showed lots of promise even before his rookie season began. He did well in OTAs and minicamps and impressed lots of people, so much so that he was the featured back that season. I'm sure that when the Lions decided to use their second round draft pick on this guy, they envisioned him being the main back for the Lions for the next few years. Their plans seemed to be on the right track because in his rookie season, Ameer led the team in rushing yards. But then he got injured in week 2 of his second season, and that is what I believe to be the start of his dwindling career. Even though he bounced back from that injury and did somewhat well the next season, he did not produce enough to show the Lions that he was good enough to be the featured back. After that 2017 season, the Lions decided that they needed more running back talent, and as we know, they not only signed LeGarrette Blount from free agency, but also drafted Kerryon Johnson. Once Ameer signed with the Vikings, I believe that he never had a chance to make a resurgence in his career, because the Vikings had drafted Dalvin Cook, and just like the Lions had drafted Ameer in the 2015 draft with the vision of him being the main back for years to come, the Vikings also drafted Dalvin Cook with the vision that he would be the featured back for the next few years. The only difference is that Dalvin had more production than Ameer. If Dalvin continues to play the way that he has recently, Ameer will continue to only contribute a minuscule part to the Vikings running game. But Ameer is only 27, so he still has time to make a name for himself. But I think the only way that'll happen is that if he gets traded and gets put into an offense that he can thrive in. Or Dalvin Cook gets hurt and the Vikings give him more carries. Either way, anything can happen, and Ameer still has time to prove himself. And I hope that not only will he be given a bigger role than he has now, but that he'll make the most of every single carry or catch that comes his way. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today. Remember, if y'all like this video, please like and subscribe, as that helps the channel to grow. Besides that, until next time.